My name is Emma, I'm 28, and my sister got pregnant by my husband while my mom helped hide it. Before I tell you about the moment I served them divorce papers at a family dinner, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It all ended at a dinner table, but it started long before that, in the quiet, unspoken spaces of my childhood where the rules were different for me and for my younger sister, Lily. Our family had an invisible scoreboard, and from the day she was born, Lily was always winning. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our mother Catherine's eyes, while I was the steady, reliable, and utterly invisible one. I remember it with perfect clarity. I was 10 years old, and I had just won the district science fair. My project was a model volcano that actually erupted with baking soda and vinegar, spewing red-dyed foam all over a miniature papier-mâché village. I was beaming, clutching a big blue ribbon, my picture slated to be in the local paper. I ran home, bursting with pride. My dad, Frank, a retired mechanical engineer whose world revolved around logic and tangible results, lifted me up in a big bear hug. "That's my girl," he boomed. "A future scientist." But my mother's reaction was muted. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she said, patting my head without really looking at the ribbon. Her attention was already elsewhere. The phone rang, and she snatched it up. For the next 20 minutes, her voice filled the house, animated and thrilled, telling her friend on the other end how Lily, at 8 years old, had just been named Little Miss Sunshine in a local pageant. There was no trophy, no prize money, just a flimsy satin sash. But in my mother's world, that sash outshone my blue ribbon, my scientific achievement, and me. My dad quietly took a photo of me holding my ribbon next to my messy volcano. For years, that photo was the only proof I had that my accomplishment had mattered to anyone. That day set the pattern for our lives. I learned to find validation in my own achievements because I knew I wouldn't get it at home. I studied relentlessly, got scholarships, and clawed my way into a top engineering program. I graduated with honors and landed a fantastic job as a software engineer at a thriving tech company. I worked hard, saved every penny, and by the time I was 27, I had achieved my biggest dream. I put a down payment on my own 2-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It was more than just wood and drywall, it was my fortress, a physical symbol of my independence, built with my own 2 hands and a lot of late nights coding. My starting salary was solid, but now, as a senior engineer, I was making $90,000 a year, with bonuses that could push it well over 6 figures. Lily drifted on a sea of my mother's approval. She was beautiful and charming, and she knew it. She flitted between low-wage jobs, always getting fired for being late or for what she called creative differences with her managers. Each time, my mother was there to cushion the fall, paying off Lily's credit card debt and assuring her that the world simply didn't appreciate her special talents. My dad would try to intervene, suggesting Lily needed to learn responsibility, but he was always outvoted. 3 years ago, my life took a turn I thought was for the better. I met Mark at a friend's backyard barbecue. He was a pediatric nurse, and he had a kindness in his eyes that felt like coming home. He listened when I talked about my work, his brow furrowed with genuine interest. He made me laugh. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me, Emma, not just the responsible older sister or the quiet engineer. We had an instant, easy chemistry. After a year of dating, we had a small, lovely wedding with 50 of our closest friends and family. He moved into my house, and life felt beautifully, wonderfully stable. We had a plan. We'd enjoy being married for a couple of years, save up, and then start thinking about starting a family of our own. About a year into our marriage, Lily was in another jam. She'd been fired from a waitressing job after arguing with a customer, and she was 3 months behind on rent. The familiar family drama played out, Lily cried, my mother wrote a check, and I felt that old, familiar pang of guilt and responsibility. I wanted to help, but I also wanted to fix the underlying problem. I thought if I could just give her a real opportunity, a career instead of a job, she would finally grow up. My company was hiring for a junior sales position. The base salary was $65,000 plus commission, a life-changing amount of money for her. I went to my boss, Chester, a gruff, no-nonsense guy in his late 50s who valued results above all else. He was my mentor, and his trust was something I had earned over 5 years of hard work. I sat in his office, my hands clasped nervously. "I know her resume is a little spotty, Chester," I began, "but she's a people person. She's charming. I really believe she just needs the right environment to thrive." Chester leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen on his desk. He looked at her resume, then back at me. "Emma, you're one of my best. Are you sure you want to stake your reputation on this? This isn't a retail gig. Our clients are major corporations. It requires discipline, follow-through. I'll mentor her," I promised, my voice earnest. "I'll make sure she's up to speed. Please, Chester. It would mean the world to me." He sighed, a long, weary sound. "All right. Against my better judgment. But she's on a strict 90-day probation. Any trouble, and she's out. No exceptions." I was ecstatic. I felt like I had just given my sister a lifeline. I thought I was building a bridge for her to walk into a better future. I had no idea I had just handed her a torch to burn my entire world to the ground. The first cracks in my perfect life appeared so subtly I almost missed them. I was put in charge of a massive, career-defining project at work, rebuilding a complex payment system for a national hospital chain. It was a huge responsibility, the kind of project that could lead to a director-level promotion. It meant long hours, late nights staring at code, and a level of stress that left me exhausted. At first, Mark was my biggest cheerleader. He'd have dinner waiting for me when I got home late. He'd rub my shoulders and tell me how proud he was. But as the weeks turned into months, he started to change. He grew distant. He made a new friend from the hospital, someone named Alexis. Suddenly, his calendar was filled with poker nights and guys' nights out, things he'd never been interested in before. He also started withdrawing cash from our joint account. Not large amounts, just a few $100s here and there. When I gently asked about it, he became uncharacteristically defensive. "It's for poker, Emma. Do I have to account for every single dollar?" His phone, which used to lie casually on the coffee table between us, was now his constant companion, always in his pocket or placed screen down on the nightstand. A cold knot of suspicion began to form in the pit of my stomach. I was convinced he was having an affair with this Alexis. I pictured her in my mind, a fellow nurse, probably young and fun, someone who wasn't tired and stressed all the time like I was. The suspicion festered, a low-grade infection in our marriage. Then came the company holiday party. It was a lavish affair at a downtown hotel. I was circulating, talking to colleagues, feeling proud of the work my team was doing. Then, I glanced across the crowded room and saw them. Mark and Lily. They were standing in a dimly lit corner, away from the main crowd. Their heads were bent close together, his body angled protectively around hers. He whispered something in her ear, and she laughed, a low, throaty sound. Then, she reached up and brushed a stray piece of hair from his forehead, her fingers lingering for a beat too long. He didn't pull away. He leaned into her touch. It was a small gesture, something that could be innocent. But it wasn't. It was charged with a secret intimacy that hit me like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just stressed and seeing ghosts. But the image was seared into my brain, a snapshot of a betrayal I wasn't ready to comprehend. A few weeks later, the strangeness escalated. Mark started getting sick in the mornings. He'd wake up and rush to the bathroom, and I'd hear the sound of him retching. He blamed it on a stomach bug, then on bad takeout, then on stress from work. One Saturday morning, he came out of the bathroom looking pale and clammy. I was trying to lighten the mood, to pretend things were normal. "Sounds like you've got a bad case of morning sickness," I said with a weak, teasing smile. His reaction was terrifying. His face, usually so kind, twisted into a mask of pure rage. "Don't be ridiculous, Emma. What is wrong with you?" he yelled, his voice echoing in the quiet house. "It's a stomach flu. Can you just be a supportive wife for once instead of making stupid jokes?" The violence of his response shocked me into silence. It was so out of proportion, so full of a venom I didn't understand. The cold knot in my stomach turned to a block of ice. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. And it wasn't about a poker night or some woman named Alexis. It was something else. Something much worse. The breaking point, the moment my life split into a before and an after, came on an ordinary Tuesday night. Mark's personal laptop had crashed, and he'd asked to use mine to send a few urgent emails for work. I was in the living room, half watching a show, half thinking about a coding problem. He finished up, said he was going to take a shower, and left the laptop on the coffee table. A few minutes later, I picked it up to check my own email before bed. His Gmail account was still open on the screen. My heart hammered against my ribs. The person I was raised to be, the polite, respectful, trusting person, screamed at me to close the window. But the woman who had watched her husband and sister at the holiday party, the woman who had been viciously screamed at for a harmless joke, that woman's hand moved the mouse. I didn't even think. I clicked on his sent folder. And there it was. My world didn't just tilt on its axis. It shattered into a million pieces. The subject line of the top email read, "The L situation." It was a chain of messages between Mark and my mother, Catherine. My blood ran cold. With a trembling finger, I clicked it open. The words on the screen blurred and sharpened, each one a separate stab wound. They were a detailed, cold-blooded chronicle of their deception. "She's starting to show," Mark had written 2 weeks ago. "We need to be more careful. Emma's working late every night, so I can come over after my shift. Just make sure Frank is out golfing." My mother's reply was swift and practical. "He has his usual tea time at 2 p.m. The house will be empty. Just make sure you park down the street. We can't have any of the neighbors asking questions." I scrolled down, my breath catching in my throat, a ragged, painful sound in the silent room. It was all there. The alibis. The secret meetings at my parents' house, the house I grew up in. The lies. And then, the final, devastating blow. The most recent email, sent just 2 days ago, from my mother to my husband. "Lily is getting anxious about the baby and the money," she wrote, her tone casual, as if discussing the weather. "I told her not to be. Emma's promotion should be official soon, and her new salary will be more than enough to support another child. Once the baby is here, we'll figure out a way to tell her. We can say it was a surrogate, or a private adoption. The important thing is that the baby is raised in a stable home with a good financial foundation. Emma is strong. She'll get over the shock. She always does." It felt like a punch to the gut. No, it was worse. It was like they had calmly and methodically reached into my chest, pulled up my still-beating heart, and explained to me, in meticulous detail, why they were about to stomp on it. They weren't just betraying me, they were colonizing my future. They had already decided that I would unknowingly raise the child of my husband's affair with my own sister, all funded by my labor, my talent, my 60-hour work weeks. My value to them wasn't as a daughter or a wife. It was as a resource. A solution. A high-earning nanny. For a long moment, I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen, the glow of the screen illuminating the horror on my face. The sound of the shower running upstairs was a dull roar, a world away. Then, something inside me snapped. The part of me that would have cried, that would have screamed and thrown the laptop against the wall, simply went silent. It withered and died. And in its place, something new and cold and hard was born. A diamond formed under pressure. I didn't confront him. I didn't say a word. My movements became precise, robotic. I picked up my phone and, with hands that were surprisingly steady, I took pictures of the screen, capturing every single incriminating word. I forwarded the entire email chain to a new, secret email address I created on the spot. Then, I meticulously logged him out, cleared the browser history, and closed the laptop, placing it back exactly where it had been. When Mark came downstairs a few minutes later, wrapped in a towel, his hair damp, I was sitting on the sofa, flipping through a magazine. He smiled. "Hey, you okay?" "Just tired," I said, my voice perfectly even. "Long day." He believed me. Of course, he did. In his world, I was predictable Emma. Stable Emma. The one who fixed problems, the one who absorbed shocks. He had no idea I had just become the one who was about to detonate a bomb right in the center of his life. The next morning, I drove to work, but I didn't go to my desk. I walked straight to Chester's office and closed the door behind me. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I laid out the situation with the detached precision of an engineer reporting a critical system failure. I didn't frame it as my personal tragedy. I framed it as a corporate risk. "Lily, an employee you hired based on my recommendation," I began, my voice steady and devoid of emotion, "has engaged in an affair with my husband. She is pregnant. This situation is about to become a contentious legal matter, a divorce. It will be messy, and it involves 2 of your employees. I am giving you a professional courtesy heads up before things become public." Chester, who had seen me through project deadlines and corporate reorganizations, stared at me. His usual gruff expression softened into something I could only describe as horrified respect. He didn't offer empty platitudes or awkward condolences. He offered a solution. "My brother-in-law," he said, his voice low and serious, "is a partner at Sterling Cooper, one of the top family law firms in the state. They eat cases like this for breakfast. Let me make a call." An hour later, I had an appointment for that afternoon. I walked into the law firm's intimidatingly plush office and met Ms. Davies. She was a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. I laid out everything, my voice never wavering. I showed her the printed photos of the emails. She read them, her expression hardening with each page. "In a fault state like ours," she said, her voice grim but confident, "this is what we call a slam dunk. The conspiracy between the 3 of them to defraud you into raising this child is particularly egregious. But we need to be smart. We need to be strategic. He can't know that you know. Not yet." For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was Emma, the dedicated engineer, the unsuspecting wife. I made Mark his coffee in the morning. I asked about his day. I listened to his lies. At night, I was a soldier preparing for battle. Following Ms. Davies' meticulous instructions, I opened a new, private bank account. I filled out a form with HR to have my salary, my entire 6-figure income, redirected there. I gathered 3 years of financial statements, tax returns, mortgage documents, and investment account summaries. I printed the emails and a full log of the incriminating text messages between Mark and Lily that Ms. Davies had subpoenaed from our phone provider. I put everything into a crisp, manila envelope. It felt heavy, like a tombstone for my dead marriage. One evening, my father called. "You sound tired, Emmy," he said, his voice laced with concern. "Everything all right?" My heart ached with the lie I was about to tell. "Everything's fine, Dad," I said, forcing a lightness into my tone. "Just busy with the final push on my big project." That small moment of genuine concern from him was a lifeline. It reminded me that not everyone in my family saw me as a tool to be used. It strengthened my resolve. Then, I made the final, decisive move. I called my mother. I summoned the performance of a lifetime, my voice bubbling with fake excitement. "Hi, Mom. I have amazing news. My big project at work was a huge success, and I got the promotion. I'm a director now." I want to have everyone over for a big celebration dinner on Saturday. A proper family dinner to share the good news. She took the bait, just as I knew she would. Her voice dripped with saccharine sweetness. Oh, Emma, how wonderful, dear. We are so proud of you. Of course, we'll be there. Lily and Mark will be so thrilled for you. The stage was set. The actors were all in place. They just didn't know what play they were in. Saturday arrived, a bright, sunny day that felt like a mockery of the storm that was about to break. I spent the afternoon cooking. I made Mark's favorite meal, slow-roasted chicken with rosemary potatoes and honey-glazed carrots. I set the dining table with the good china we'd gotten for our wedding, the crystal glasses, the polished silverware. The house smelled of home and happiness, a perfect illusion. They arrived one by one. I accepted my mother's cloying hug, feeling her perfidious hands pat my back. I smiled at Lily, who was radiant, her pregnancy giving her a glow that turned my stomach. She was wearing a new, expensive-looking dress, probably bought with money my mother had given her. I kissed my husband, the taste of his lies like ash in my mouth. My father was the only one who looked at me with pure, unadulterated pride. "Director," he said, beaming. "I always knew you had it in you." We sat down to eat. The conversation was a symphony of their deception. They toasted my success, their faces masks of loving support. They talked about their plans, about the future, completely oblivious that their future was a house of cards, and I was holding the match. I let them talk, nodding and smiling, a silent observer at my own life's execution. After the main course, as I stood to clear the plates, I paused. I went to my purse, which I had placed on a nearby chair. I took out 2 large, crisp manila envelopes. The air in the room shifted, the light chatter dying down as they watched me. I stood at the head of the table, the matriarch of a family I was about to dismantle. "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate my promotion," I began, my voice clear and cold, cutting through the sudden silence. It's moments like these you realize how important family is. And how important honesty is. I walked over to my father and placed the first envelope on the table in front of him. It landed with a soft, definitive thud. "Dad," I said softly, my eyes meeting his. "I think you should see this." Then, I turned my gaze to Mark. I walked to his side of the table and slid the second envelope across the polished wood. It glided silently, like a shark moving through water, stopping right in front of him. "And this, Mark," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, "is for you." My father, his brow furrowed in confusion, opened his envelope. He pulled out the thick stack of papers. His eyes scanned the first page, a printout of the email from my mother to Mark about how my salary would support the baby. I watched his face cycle through the stages of devastation, confusion, dawning comprehension, disbelief, and then a dark, volcanic rage that I had never seen in my gentle, quiet father. His head snapped up, and he stared at my mother, his eyes blazing with the fire of a betrayal so profound it scorched the air between them. At the same time, Mark tore open his envelope. He pulled out the legal documents. His face went white as a sheet. His eyes darted across the first page, and I saw the moment he read the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." What is this, Emma?" he stammered, his voice a pathetic, trembling thread. "That," I said, my voice ringing with a power I never knew I possessed, "is my divorce filing. On the grounds of adultery. With my sister." Chaos erupted. It was instantaneous and glorious. "She's lying!" Lily shrieked, jumping to her feet, her chair scraping violently against the floor. "She's making it all up! She's always been jealous of me and Mark's friendship." My mother rushed to her side, a lioness protecting her favored cub. "Emma, how could you invent such a horrible, vicious story? You're just stressed from work, you're not thinking clearly." But my father slammed his fist on the table. The crystal glasses jumped, the silverware rattled. "Silence," he roared, his voice shaking the very foundations of the house. He held up the sheaf of emails, shaking them in his hand. It's all here, Catherine. In black and white. The whole disgusting plan. You helped them. You conspired against your own daughter. In our house. Mark was on his feet now, his hands held up in a pleading gesture, his face a mask of pathetic panic. Emma, baby, please. We can talk about this. It was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. I love you. I laughed. The sound was hollow and sharp, devoid of any humor. A mistake? I asked, stepping towards him. Was it a mistake every time you lied about where you were? Was it a mistake when you used my laptop to coordinate your affair? Was it a mistake when you planned with my mother how my new salary could support your love child? The baby you and my sister made while I was working 60-hour weeks to build us a future? Lily, seeing her world and her financial security crumble, lost the last of her composure. You bitch, she screamed, her face contorted with hate. You've ruined everything. And she lunged at me, her hands outstretched like claws. I didn't flinch. The old Emma, the one who shrank from conflict, was gone. I sidestepped her clumsy, rage-fueled attack. And as she stumbled past me, off balance, I reacted. It wasn't a thought, it was a pure, primal instinct. I pivoted and I punched her. Square in the jaw. It was a short, sharp, satisfying impact. She crumpled to the floor, not in a dramatic faint, but in a messy, undignified heap, sobbing. I ignored her. I turned my attention back to Mark. I looked at the man I had once loved, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a vast, empty space where my love used to be. Get out, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute, irrevocable finality. Get out of my house. The aftermath was every bit as messy as Ms. Davies had predicted, but I was prepared. Lily, in a final, pathetic act of spite, filed assault charges against me. I had to appear in court. I stood before the judge, calm and composed, pleaded no contest, and paid the $500 fine without a word. It was the best money I'd ever spent, a small price for the satisfaction of that punch. The divorce was brutal but swift. Ms. Davies was a shark. Armed with the irrefutable evidence of the affair and the chilling conspiracy to defraud me, she left Mark with nothing. He had no claim to my house, which was mine before the marriage. He had no claim to my savings, my investments, or my inheritance. The paternity test, of course, confirmed he was the father, simplifying matters further. He walked away with his clothes and his debt. My family imploded. My father moved out of the family home the day after that fateful dinner. He started divorce proceedings against my mother immediately. He called me a week later, his voice heavy with a pain that mirrored my own. He told me he had already met with his own lawyer to officially remove Lily from his will. There will be no inheritance for her, Emma, he'd said, his voice cracking. Not a single penny. He apologized over and over, for not seeing, for not protecting me. I told him it wasn't his fault. He was a victim in this, too. A few months later, I received an email from Chester with the subject line update. He informed me that the company, prompted by his concerns over Lily's character, had conducted a discreet internal audit of the sales department. They'd discovered she had been embezzling funds, skimming from her commission accounts and falsifying expense reports. She was fired immediately and the company was pressing criminal charges. It was a perfect, karmic bookend to her betrayal. A year passed. A year of quiet rebuilding. A year of therapy. A year of rediscovering the person I was without the crushing weight of their expectations and betrayals. I poured myself into my work and into myself. I was officially promoted to Director of Engineering, with a salary and benefits package that gave me a level of security I'd never dreamed of. I used the money to renovate my house, not just redecorating, but tearing down walls, letting in light, purging every last memory of Mark until it felt truly, completely mine. I even bought a small rental property downtown, a new investment in my fiercely independent future. Then, one crisp autumn afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my mother. Her voice was a thin, desperate whisper, stripped of all its former arrogance. She begged me to meet them. "It's about the baby," she'd said. "Please, Emma. We have no one else to turn to." A morbid curiosity, more than anything else, made me agree. I chose a busy, anonymous coffee shop downtown. I saw them before they saw me. My mother looked 10 years older, her face etched with worry. And Mark. Mark looked like a ghost. He was gaunt, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He was holding a baby carrier, and inside, a small baby was fussing. He looked exhausted, haunted, and utterly broken. They sat across from me, a portrait of ruin. They told me a story of a life that had spiraled out of control. Lily had been arrested not just for the embezzlement, but for a DUI. Her life of irresponsibility had finally caught up with her. In a fit of rage and desperation, she had been abusive towards Mark, and then one day, she just left. She packed a bag and disappeared, abandoning him and their 6-month-old daughter. They were desperate. They had no money. Mark had lost his nursing job due to the stress and the constant need to care for the baby. "We need your help, Emma," my mother pleaded, her eyes full of tears that I knew were for her own predicament, not for my past pain. "He's your nephew. He has nowhere else to go. We have nothing." Mark finally looked at me, his eyes hollowed out with shame. "Please, Emma," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything. I know I'm a monster. But she's just a baby. She's innocent in all of this. She needs a stable home. You could give her that. We could arrange for you to have full custody." I listened. I let them pour out all their failure, all their desperation, all their pathetic excuses. The old Emma, the fixer, the responsible one, would have felt a pang of duty. The old Emma would have seen the innocent child and felt her heart break. But the woman sitting across from them was new. She had been forged in the fires of their betrayal and had emerged as steel. I reached into my purse and took out a pen and a clean napkin. I calmly wrote down the address and phone number of a state-funded women and children's shelter I had looked up before the meeting. I pushed the napkin across the table. It came to a stop beside Mark's trembling hand. "I cannot help you," I said, my voice calm and even, devoid of anger or pity. It was the voice of a simple fact. My life, my home, and my future are my own now. You are not my responsibility. But these people can help you. They are equipped to help people in your situation. I stood up. I did not look at the baby in the carrier. I couldn't. That was a door I had to keep welded shut forever. I placed a $20 bill on the table for their coffee, a final, transactional gesture. Then I turned around, and I walked out into the bright afternoon sun without looking back. That was 6 months ago. I heard through my dad, who I now see for dinner every Sunday, that Lily took a plea deal and is serving an 18-month sentence. Mark and his daughter eventually moved in with his own parents, who are helping him get back on his feet. My parents' divorce was finalized last month. As for me, I'm packing. My new hiking backpack is on my bed, light and ready for adventure. On my desk is the architectural blueprint for a new software system I designed, a project that has been hailed as a major innovation in my field. For years, I built complex, stable systems for other people. I finally built one for myself. Tomorrow, I'm leaving for a 3-week solo trip through Yellowstone. The road ahead is open, vast, and for the first time in my life, it's entirely my own. And I've never felt so free. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but it felt necessary. My question for you is, have you ever had to make a clean break from a family member to save yourself? Let me know in the comments. And if my story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more.